The official Saturday box office projections are out, and The Curse of La Llorona retained the number one position with $8,725,000, and that takes its total gross for the Friday and Saturday and the advanced screenings to $20.5 million. Shazam should keep its second position, and it is projected right now to have $6,580,000 for the Saturday, which is a slight increase over what it got on a Friday. And they are also predicting a 30% drop for Shazam on the Sunday, and that would mean it would get around $4.6 million. And that would bring its weekend box office total to $17,340,000. And if we have a look at our chart with Ant-Man, X-Men, X-Men First Class, Wolverine, Shazam, and I put Green Lantern back on just since it wasn't getting in the way anymore, being all the way down there by itself, and we can see that Shazam has had a very different increase to all of the other films in the last few days, obviously because of the Easter holiday. The other films weren't released at the same point in time. And we can see just that Shazam is now over the top of the yellow line, the X-Men First Class line. And when we look at just those two films by themselves on the chart, it's a little bit more clear. So it is really close, but it has overtaken it. So I said that I thought by the end of the Sunday, they'd both have around about $120 million each. The current projection for Shazam is about $1 million more than that. So I thought that they'd be pretty close, but it's coming in slightly more than I thought. So 121 versus $120 million approximately. And there's no real reason to think that Shazam should now fall under where X-Men First Class was at the same point in time, except obviously that Endgame is out, and it's still fairly unknown how much that will affect all the films around it. So if there wasn't a very, very large film that's taking up a lot of screens, I would say that Shazam would beat X-Men First Class without a doubt from this point on. But again, with Endgame taking up a lot of the screens, it's possible there won't be a lot of screenings for Shazam or any other film right now, and so it may have a little bit of a bigger decrease than what it looks like it should get. But if we look at the next film on the list, the original X-Men from the year 2000, and all of these are without inflation, by the way. Shazam is not beating these films if we put inflation in, but without inflation, we have a look at X-Men versus Shazam, and we can see that it's fairly close, but Shazam still trails the X-Men. So I did say that I thought it would be a few $1 million, maybe $3 million behind X-Men at this point in time. It is doing a little bit better than that, but it is still behind X-Men. If we take a look at the raw numbers with Shazam here on the left and X-Men on the right, we can see the four bottom numbers for Shazam are in green. That means they are projected numbers, so they are not 100% accurate. That means that they may move around a bit, so this total may be a little bit higher or a little bit lower than it may actually be in reality. But using these four green numbers, we can see that the second number down, the April 19th number, the Friday number, we got a nice $6.155 million. And then on the Saturday, we got a slight increase, $6.58 million. Okay, and I said it will probably get somewhere between $5.7 and $7 million, which is a very wide gap. But over the Easter holiday, there's a big sort of amount of room where a lot of films seem to go. But nonetheless, it would have been a fairly good result for a holiday, or a good result for a normal day, I should say. A normal result for a holiday. And on the Sunday, I thought it would probably get a 30 to 35% drop, but I thought more likely to be about 35, and it got a 30% drop. So, or they're projecting a 30% drop anyway, to $4.6 million. So its projected total right now is $121,341,951. Now, if you look across the right-hand side on the July 30th, which is the equivalent Sunday for X-Men, we can see that X-Men earned $3.989 million, and its gross total over on the very right is $122,937,208. So we've got about $1.6 million between the Sunday totals for these two films. Now, $1.6 million is a fair bit of money at this point in time. It's not that easy to get $1.6 million back. Okay, there is a lot of, well, not a lot, there's some money still available for Shazam to earn. $1.6 million doesn't sound like a lot of money, but it's not earning a lot of money anymore, okay? And these last 4 days have been artificially inflated over where it would normally be because of the holiday, and we need to look back at the previous week numbers to see what's sort of going to go on forward from here. On the upcoming Monday, because that's a holiday, it'll probably earn somewhere around its previous Monday's total. But again, because of the holiday, there's a fair bit of wiggle room between what it will actually get. So if you look at the previous Monday, which would be April 15th, it earned a $2.098 million. So $2.1 million is what it got. And that's a good estimate right now for where it'll get around about. But again, it could be maybe plus or minus $500,000. Maybe even more than that perhaps, but I would suspect it'll be more positive than negative. So $2.1 million is where I think it'll get right now, but I think it could go something like $3 million. I don't think it would go the other way around and get something like $1.2 million or somewhere around there. So $3 million wouldn't surprise me. Even more than $3 million wouldn't surprise me because of the $4.6 million Sunday, and again, Monday's sort of a holiday for most people. So if we look at the equivalent date for X-Men, we've got $1.7 million. So if we're going to get $2.1 million and you've got $1.7 million, we'll close that gap a little bit. It'll get a little bit smaller. Then if we look at the Tuesday for Shazam, they've been getting a fairly good bump. If we look at April the 9th, we have a 61% bump up there. And if we look at April the 16th, we have a 53% bump. So we really should get somewhere in the neighborhood of a 50% bump, except the Monday is going to be artificially inflated higher. And so what might end up happening is the Tuesday might be somewhere around about what the Monday is. Okay, and that doesn't mean that the Tuesday underperformed. It's because the Monday is going to be much bigger than what the Monday ordinarily would have been. So we may get something, once again, like $2.1 million for the Tuesday. And if we look across at X-Men, we've got something like $1.8 million. So that would be another couple of $100,000 clawing into this $1.6 million lead. For the Wednesday, it's the day before Endgame launches. It may just have all of the cinemas quiet before the big rush comes in. But just ignoring Endgame for the moment, what would we expect to get on the Wednesday? Well, roughly speaking, it should be a little bit less than what it got on Monday. But because Monday's inflated up a bit, it's a little bit more difficult to calculate what that is. Now, if you look at the Tuesdays to the Wednesday so far, what Shazam has done, okay, we got 61% bump on the Tuesday, had a 47% drop to the Wednesday. The next week it had a 53% bump, then it had a 40% drop. So maybe something like a 40% drop is really what we're looking at. And so if we're saying that we're going to get somewhere around a $2.1 million, that would give us around about $1.26 million. Now, the other way we could maybe calculate what the number probably should be around about is we can look at what the actual Mondays have been doing to each other. So the first Monday we got $3 million, and the second Monday we got $2.1 million. That's approximately a two-thirds of the original target. So if we take two-thirds of the $2.1 million, we get somewhere around $1.4 million. So that's roughly what we think we'll get. That's a high figure. I think that's maybe a little bit more accurate normally, but again, with Endgame, don't really know what it will get. But I think $1.4 million is a good number to use, except it may get a drastic reduction because of Endgame. And if we look at the equivalent Wednesday for X-Men, it got $1.489 million, so a little bit more than that. And if we look at the Thursday for X-Men, it got another $1.47, and I'd imagine Shazam's Thursday would be a little bit under what it got on Wednesday if Endgame didn't exist. And so on the Wednesday and the Thursday, I think X-Men would probably out-earn Shazam if Endgame wasn't actually coming up. On the upcoming Friday, I don't think there's any point really looking at it again because Endgame will be out, and there's no real way I think to predict what will happen to the Shazam box office. But essentially, because Endgame does exist, I think Shazam will get a little bit closer to this X-Men title over the next couple of days, the Monday and the Tuesday. I think it'll gain some room, or it'll close the gap. But after that, it looks like they're going to be earning something very similar to each other. And then it may be a bit less than similar because of Endgame. So I don't think it looks like Shazam will be able to actually catch X-Men, which is what I did say in my last video, but it is closer right now than where I thought it would have been. So it's about $1.5 million closer than where I thought it would be on Sunday. So it's closer to X-Men than I thought it would be, but I don't really see it being able to get over the top. And if it does, it'll be a very slow, an extra $50,000 here, an extra $100,000 there over the next coming months. So it's not impossible that it does overtake X-Men, but there's no clear signs here to go, oh yes, I think that will, basically take over or go over the top of X-Men. Okay, nothing's ever 100% positive that'll happen, but I don't see any signs here that it would definitely happen or nearly definitely happen. So again, I think it'll earn less money than X-Men, but it's getting a little bit closer to it than I thought it would be. Now, going back to X-Men First Class, X-Men First Class earned $1.4 million in the Monday as in place of the $1.7 million for X-Men, and basically it should earn more money than X-Men First Class. Okay, so there's not really any reason to think that it won't earn more money than X-Men First Class, even with Endgame. But again, I have to say it's very hard to judge what will happen with Endgame. So it is still possible that Shazam's box office really flatlines from here, and that's it. It's got $121 million now. Maybe it'll only get like another $10 million over the next coming couple of months. It's possible. It just depends on how many theaters are willing to give it screens, basically. And the same goes for all the films. So all the films out right now, Endgame's eating up a lot of screens, especially for the opening weekend. So things will probably change after the first week, but then there's more films coming out. And, this film's 3 weeks old, so its box office run's basically done. But Endgame might make the difference between it eking out another $25 million or eking out another $10 or $15 million. So it's very, very hard to tell. But at this stage, I don't think that it'll beat X-Men's non-inflation adjusted US domestic total. Okay, again, I'm not talking about inflation numbers here. X-Men will most definitely earn a lot more money than Shazam will. X-Men's an 8 or 19-year-old film. You put inflation on, it gets much, much, much bigger. So going forward, we'll see what Shazam gets on the Monday and the Tuesday, but most news, I imagine now, will just be on Endgame. We might be able to get the first hints of what the actual advanced ticket sales might be, so that might give us a little bit of a clue as to what it will earn on the Thursday for the US domestic box office open, although it opens on Friday, the advanced screening part. So maybe that'll give us a clue as to whereabouts that'll fit in. Will it beat the all-time record for advanced screening money, which I think it's The Force Awakens has that with $57 million, and I think it's about $60 million with inflation. I did predict that I think Endgame will beat that number, so we'll see. Will Endgame beat the $60 million? Or will it at least beat the Infinity War number, which I think was $39 million? So I really think it should outdo Infinity War, but we'll see where it fits in there. Will it get more than $39 million for Thursday, or will it get more than $60 million for Thursday? Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time.